Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to look at pedestals and what is our criteria for putting someone on a pedestal. This is going to change a lot as you go through your ascension process because our human pedestals and our ascension pedestals are very different measuring sticks on why people are on a pedestal. Now, putting people on a pedestal is a very common thing we all do. In our human consciousness, we do it. Do we do it based on looks? Do we do it based on money? Do we do it based on fame? You know, what was our criteria for putting someone up on a pedestal? And you know, to me, a pedestal means it's someone either that you put above everyone else, as far as they can get away with more. In our human consciousness, for me, it was they can get away with more. You know, I'm not as harsh on them as I am going to be on somebody else. You know, I let them slide. And even in my ascension, I would sort of do that with certain people on pedestals. But I'm going to separate off human and then our ascension pedestals. So when we're in our human and we're putting people on pedestals, look at what you used to put them on there for. You know, why did you hoist them on that pedestal? What made them someone you looked up to, someone you like get by with stuff, someone that you wanted to be like? And why did you want to be like them? Very few times in our human existence did we put people on a pedestal based on consciousness, based on the person they really were. It was more based on the outside stuff. Because as humans, we really just care about the outside stuff. We don't really go deeper than that. Our human only has the capacity to look at the outside stuff. It doesn't want to get all into the inside stuff, because if it gets into that inside, someone else's inside stuff, it's got to look at our own inside stuff. And we don't have any interest in that. Our human consciousness has no interest in doing that. It has to get tricked into it. Our higher aspects will trick us into doing that, but us ourselves, we don't care about it. You know, we don't want to know. We don't want to see any of that stuff. So we've always had this pedestal energy. And then you're going to get into either it's your awakening, it can be your pre-ascension, it can be your ascension process, all different parts of a journey. So we're kind of different in all parts, right? And we are many different parts and pieces and aspects during our ascension journey until we bring everything into kind of one. We merge everything together. So when we're in our ascension, pre-ascension or awakening, we have a different pedestal. You know, you start putting people on a pedestal on who you want to be like, who you're going to look at as pure. You know, a higher aspect of you is someone you're going to put on a pedestal, you know, because that's someone you want to be like. And it doesn't matter if they are 100% pure. That definition is going to change for you. It changes for all of us as we go through our ascension process. Someone you thought was at one point, you might see later that they, in that moment, they were for you. You know, in that moment, they were a higher aspect of you, and then it shifted, and then you might have gone higher than them in a sense. And not higher as judgment, just where you were in your process. You might have been on a faster track than they were. They had other human things to do. You know, maybe they had children. A lot of times people who have kids, they move a little slower just because they have something else like that to focus on. You know, they have they kind of have a soul contract with the child. They can't focus all on themselves. Sometimes people with children will go a little bit slower. So there could have been people all along the way that you would put up on the pedestal, but we put them up there because they were who we wanted to be. You know, they were who we wanted to strive to be like. Whether that definition changed for you as you went and that definition got distorted, you know, as we went, they were still something we look at and go, wow, I want to be like that person. You know, I feel that they're a higher aspect of me. What would they do? You know, what would they do in that situation? It reminds me of that old South Park. This is probably the last time I watched South Park. It was what would Brian, I can't remember his name now. It was a figure skater. But anyway, they would always say that. They really liked that figure skater. And then, what would he do right now? It's like, what would we do right now? What would this person do right now? And that's kind of how we are, because they serve as a marker for us, a bar for us in our process where I want to be like that person. You know, what would they do right now? How would they align this reality? You know, what would they say right now? And they also represent that aspect of us. You know, they act as our higher aspect until we can become that aspect ourselves. They are that for us. You know, they are that marker. They're that goalpost for us. And like I said, that might change as you go. I've had a couple of those come in and out for me. because at different phases of my process, they were a higher aspect until I transcended kind of that aspect. And then there was a higher aspect of me. And then another person would come in and fill that role until eventually you get rid of the pedestal. But our human needs that as a marker, and we need something to look at and say, I want to be like that person. But we don't base it on the same things. We base it on the purity of that person, the authenticity of that person. Is that person really living it, or are they just talking about it? I see a lot of people talk about ascension, very few people living ascension. People want to talk about it and they don't know what they're talking about. But that still serves a purpose, because for someone in that place, it's still information. It's still, they're supposed to, the place they're in, they're supposed to be in. But you get to a certain part where a lot of that stuff rings very hollow, and you're like, oh, I don't really, what's the word I want? Resonate with that. I don't really look at that and go, yeah, that's what I want to be like. I'm like, I don't know if I do. I don't know how I feel about that right now, because you hear the frequency, and it's either going to ring true or it's not. And the higher your frequency goes, the frequencies you'll really begin to notice, the ones that are distorted, the ones that the words don't match what they're saying. But there comes a part of the process too, and we have to take people off of pedestals, because if we keep putting people on a pedestal, we keep a separation, we keep a teacher-student separation. I'm not as good as they are. You will start to distort that pedestal. And you'll also find you'll be putting people on a pedestal for the purpose they served in your journey, right? Like a twin flame, which technically everyone's a twin, but you might put them on a pedestal. And even in your ascension process, you'll let them get away with more because they're kind of your twin. They can get you and no one else can get you. They're causing all these programs to come up. And that's really why they're there. They're not there for the big Cinderella story, even though we feel like it should be. It's more of, it can turn into more of like a Resident Evil story, but it seems that you get torn apart in it, or because it's tearing down all those walls, it's tearing down all that programming. That's what they're supposed to do. It's not a Disney story. Our human wants it to be, and we try to put them on a pedestal to make it that. We try to conform to that. We try to conform to what could make this reality work. Anytime you have someone up on a pedestal and it's not based on purity, it's based on emotionally how they make you feel, in a sense. We have a cord to it, we have an emotional attachment to it, and what we're doing is we're distorting the pedestal. We're putting them up on the pedestal, letting them get away with things, because we know if we don't let them get away with those things, the reality will collapse. The minute we stand up for ourselves, which could be the purpose you created the whole reality, could be the purpose that twin's there, the minute I do that, this pedestal is going to fall down on me, because that they no longer serve a purpose. And unless we're going to shift the reality and they want to be in another one, that's not disempowering, where I'm not disempowering myself, then we don't have a reality anymore. So a lot of times we'll put things on pedestals because we like how they make us feel. We like how that person makes us feel. They get to us so no one else gets to us. And we'll put people on pedestal for that. So there's a lot of different reasons we'll pedestal people. Even on our ascension journey and our awakening journey, we pedestal people for all the reasons that some more appropriate than others, some that fit into the highest of the high for us, and some that fit into kind of playing in, we don't want to let that person go. We don't believe there's another twin out there. We kind of get into that twin matrix program like there's no one else. Twins are the big ones that I know I would always pedestal, until I got to the point where I realized the minute I stopped doing that, the minute I stopped letting that person get away with everything, the whole reality collapsed, because that's what the reality was built on. The reality was built on disempowerment. The minute I say no more to that, then the whole reality will crumble down around us. So look at who you're pedestaling. Look at why. Have you found that person when you're in different parts of your ascension journey that you want to be? Have you found that? Like I said, eventually all those pedestals do have to go. Human consciousness needs teacher-student. They need the respect. They need to say someone's a teacher. Whereas for souls, someone who's done the soul work, you can become more of a guide. You can still have, for someone's a guide, though they're still not pedestal, but there is a part of the process where we need the pedestal. We need that person to look up to say, okay, what would I do now? What do I do? Brian Boitano, that was the ice skater's name that the South Park kids would do. What would Brian Boitano do? Who is your Brian Boitano? Who is that person where you're going to look up to and go, wow, what would that person do? Would that person, how would they align this reality? How would they dissect this reality? So there are pedestals that are going to help you. They are well, I don't really like the word help, but they're pedestals that will be there for a very different reason than other pedestals. So start looking at the pedestals you have. Start looking at, has your pedestal changed? Did you used to have someone you looked to, and what would they do? And all of a sudden, you don't resonate so much with them anymore. Now you resonate with somebody else because your consciousness is now different. And everything that they originally would help you align with, you can now align those. And now you're on to a different part of your process where you need someone who's achieved a higher aspect. Oh gosh, I just watched, it was a scene from one of the Star Wars movies. Can't remember. It was something that Yoda said, and it was something like, masters are what they surpass, or something to that extent. Masters are, that's being a master, they'll eventually surpass you, in a sense. Even though it's not a race, it's not about surpassing everybody, but there will be some people that after a while, they've gotten to a certain point of their journey where they might be halting for a while because of different things they've got to do, and you'll keep going. It doesn't mean they're not in the right place or they're not doing it right or you're better than them. It's none of that judgmental stuff our human's going to want to, the story our human's going to want to put around it. They're just in a different part of their journey. They're doing other things. They might have other contracts to fill. They're at a pause right now, but you keep going because you have something else to do. So don't feel like because one person was on a pedestal once and you don't resonate with that anymore, you got to keep them on the pedestal. Sometimes your pedestal is going to change out, and that's okay. Okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.